In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how we can combine different lattice types together. So for example, a lattice containing both a surface lattice TPMS structure and a strut lattice structure as well. So by the end of this tutorial, we're going to be able to design structures that look something like this. So again, as is normal now within our tutorials, I'm going to start with an imported 50 by 50 by 50 millimeter cube inside the center of my base plate. So I'm going to first apply my surface lattice to this object. So I click on my cube and I'm going to then click the surface lattice option. My surface lattice type, I'll pick Schwarz D, the standard diamond TPMS lattice. And I'm going to say put 3 cells in each of the axes and set my density to be around 0.4. And then I will run this solve on 0.5 just to see what my initial diamond surface looks like. The solve options are in the generate panel, and that can be found by clicking the cog next to the generate button in the top right hand corner of Sulis. So what if we want to then apply a strut lattice in all the gaps of this structure? Well, what I will now do is just take a copy of my initial cube lattice. So to do that, I'll press Ctrl C and Ctrl V, having highlighted my cube in the project panel. I can then see I've got 2 surface lattices, but for my second cube, I'll actually want a strut lattice. So I'll click on the drop down menu and then press delete on the surface lattice component. And then this time I'll click on this and then add a strut lattice instead. So now if I look in my problem components panel, I have 1 strut lattice on cube 1 and I have a surface lattice on cube 0. So for my strut lattice, I'm going to select corner diagonal struts. Now I'm going to just look at it from the above view, pressing P to move into the orthographic mode. Then I'm going to see update struts to see how many struts I'll need. And here we can see the number of struts. What I can do is generate my initial model and see how we're doing. So here we can see we've got the 2 aligned, but we might want more struts, for example, in this axis. So I can change these parameters now and say reduce my strut size to 0.6 and increase the number of cells to say 16 in each of the axes. If I update the struts here, we can see this gives us a far better definition of struts in this gap. But what I will now need to do, because I've reduced the strut thickness, is just reduce the resolution of my solve. Normally we would recommend, again, that we want the solve to be about half the resolution of the strut thickness. So I'll generate this now and then we could take a look at the results. So here we can see the final structure that we've created, containing both strut lattice structures and the TPMS structure as a hybrid unit cell. And then I can now export this out of Sulis Lattice for printing by going to the export panel, decimating, filtering the particles and exporting this volume to file.